Good afternoon, all of you. Am I audible? Yeah. So I think welcome to the session, and I know that you have been overloaded with a lot of AIs and machine learnings and deep learning. So I'll stick to my topic about, I'm a developer, so I've been on software development now for a very long time. So I will give you my perspective from what is the development thinking into AI, deep learning, and machine learning space, more in a consolidated fashion. Interestingly, I work with Oracle as an entrepreneur. Basically, I'm an entrepreneur inside Oracle. So they have allowed me to do a lot of work like a startup. So I've forked some projects, which is basically it's gone into a lot of high level of acceptance. I'm going to share that blueprint. And towards the end, I will also speak about what Oracle is doing on this space and open up. So I have just 20 minutes, so I'll just take 5-10 minutes of my project, what I'm doing as a research, then try to give you a consolidation about what I see is the development trends for the future. I think that's going to be the session. So I have got a lot of motivation from Larry to really think that always don't be carried away by what people feel. I think I like the first session which you told. There's a lot of perceptions, and people feel that your prototype will work, not work, it doesn't matter. If you feel that something is going to be really good and you really feel it, just keep doing it. I'm sure that things will have an agile model and you'll reach a level where things start happening, right? So we have to create it. So I think this thought actually inspired me to do this project. Initially, I was doing a lot of talkings in forums, more than 100, 150 forums. And there's one guy who came to me and told, apart from you trying to demonstrate your products of Oracle, do you do something? Do you create something first, right? So that was really a shocker for me, because most of the time I'm demonstrating a product which has been created by somebody else, and I don't create anything at all, right? So that really inspired me that I should do something, and that is how basically these things what you see. So I create a lot of prototypes at home. So I run a mind engineering lab, which is very rare course of things. So I like the first session because of that. I'm trying to derive human patterns into a database. I'm writing my own query language to see whether you can actually extract information. Most of the time it is a failure. I think for the last 3 years, I'm facing quite a good headwind of failures, which I love it. So I see that forthcoming days, there could be good sunrise for me. One of the projects which you see there, an augmented bot, I'm working directly with product management also. So these are my writings. So last 6 months, I've been started writing a lot of stuff about AI, about bots, about refrigerator, about a sofa. How does anything look like in the future? So I'm quite excited to see how every device could communicate and complicate our life, not simplify our life. So if you see my project, it could be very interesting for this team to really see. It is to talk about how to reduce AI, not how to increase AI, right, for the future. So this is my project. So I like to speak about it. It's currently in a context of registration and protocols and prototyping. So I'm trying to establish this down the line. It's called as SICKI, right? So you're not able to find anything on Google at this point, because it's something which I am creating it. And what I'm trying to create is something very interesting, a smart, incremental, contextual intelligence. So what I found is, engineering-wise, whatever companies you're talking about are doing great jobs. When I looked at it from a customer perspective, right, there's a lot of irritation coming in, because he sees too many things are thrown at him, and because there are a lot of things thrown at him, he's not able to find which is useful, which is not useful. So you need a platform which can be plugged in at a real-time kind of scenario, which can give him one small thing, okay, which makes a huge difference to him, than trying to give 50 things which is really going to confuse him, right? So that's a concept which I was driving. Let's take an example. When you go and travel in a car, Google Map is de facto standard. Nobody is going to debate you that I don't need a Google map to reach a place. Maybe you want to know the traffic. Okay, what is the third thing you will bet on, right? It depends on a lot of things, right? It's a human mood, human emotion. Maybe you're having a context at that point of time. You want to do something, but can you get it? You normally don't get it, right? But when you open a mobile app or something, you get a lot of things before you, which confuses you like and just throw away, right? So this platform is going to enable you. More about it, I think, as we go forward in 6 months, you could see this released. So some of my motivation to this is you get into intelligence that's small. This was one of the key motivation for me. You could turn a table into a computer. All of a sudden, just turn your shirt, your chair, and even your body into a computer. This is really interesting for me to really, so these are some of the motivation took me to the project. Second is the same person trying to behave differently. I could never understand that how come in the morning somebody behaves in a fashion A, in lunch he's behaving very differently, in the night he's behaving differently. So I could really not be able to crack this, whether a technology can play a very key role in terms of meeting this. Similarly, you could see that when human is going to work on an internet, which is concept of humanized internet, how things are really going to be changing, right? When a device and a human are connected and how they're going to collaborate. So these are some of the interesting, I'm not able to really get deeper into it, but motivations for me. And I don't know whether you heard about Internet of Emotional Things, which is specifically very interesting. I don't know, I wanted to show a demo, like if have to look at real emotions of people here without even asking you, taking feedback that whether the session is good or not. Whether it is possible or not, I'm not sure. But it is possible in the future to really see you and know what kind of emotions are you depicting. Is it a surprise? Is it a joy? You have softwares like Affectiva, which does it already. But what is important is how do you take those kind of frameworks and make it a little more useful, right? So let me give an example. When somebody walks into a store, like any of the telco store, there are people who are happy, people are not happy. How do you measure it? You give a feedback form and tell ticket 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And most of the time he is doing it by compulsion, not by design, right? Because if you compel him to do, he will tick 4 or 5 depending on what you tell. If you give only one option, he'll only tick 5 also, right? So it's possible that you're trying to do it for the sake of doing it. But human emotions are different. When he comes in, gets out, he transforms. You can see that he's happy when he's coming in, while going in, he's frustrated. Whether it's possible to really capture those customer experience and without his knowledge, play something and tell him like, I felt like you were annoyed, right? Basically, can we do something about it? So these are some of the areas like this particular area is going to depict. So this is the interaction framework which I'm developing at this point, a very complicated framework. Maybe I'm 30% to this particular level of this framework. So please understand, I'm not doing anything on the engineering side of things because I always felt there are a lot of people who are into the engineering side. I think the place where we are missing is the interaction side. Because if I am a customer, if I am a farmer, if I am a guy who's from an insurance agent, I have an interface, I have an interactions. So that cognitive part of it, people are not focusing. So people are a lot of focus on the devices, algorithms, machine learning, blah, 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 trying to simulate it. But this side, which is the human component, if they don't handle it properly, you will find that most of the other things get waste. So I think this is the framework we are trying to develop. And it's trying to do a lot of this using a lot of cloud stuff, infrastructure, platform, data, it uses the development consumption layer. And we are doing an entire high-level architecture thing. I think all this will get published down the line as we start writing the papers, white papers, etc. It's a complete platform by itself. Okay, so that's it about the Siki. So Siki is something which we have done as not as from an Oracle guy. It's more of an independent thing. We have taken these frameworks of Siki into some of the product lines in Oracle in terms of we're trying to give some ideas and trying to see how it can be developed, right? So over to the topic in terms of what is the future adaptive application development looks like. So I want to give you 10 points. Like if you come to this sessions after maybe 5 to 10 years, what could be the 10 trends you could see on the development side, right? That's how I want to leave this conversation to. The first one I can see is an IDE with AI parts, which I'm already trying to do, and a learning and a human emotion. It means like you would have heard about Visual Basics where you have text box, you have this box, that box, you drag it and drop into a IDE and start developing. Down the line, you will find that whatever you're talking today on the machine learning parts, this IoT stuff, which are all very disintegrated today, you find it on an IDE, you can drag and drop and tell, I'm going to create a workflow of what I want to do, and you're able to compose this. And this is a reality in a specific OEM already, right? So Google could have it, Oracle could have it, something like that. But what you could see is like there's a lot of research happening on this side. And when I wanted to really develop a tooling concept, this seems to be a very interesting part on how we are going to really look at the augmented platform for development. And this is a natural intelligence API, which is very interesting, which I had to request for this project, which I was working on. And this API is basically to look at, to simulate what your neural network is doing. And it allows you to write commands. It allows you to bring results. And it tries to automate a lot of things. It tries to call the machine learning algorithm, but it's more of a user interface which you can see. So this is going to be really developing in a big way. Deep learning, I think, something which all of you understand, but one thing we have tried to do is to create a repository of deep learning and a query language, because I think the select statements on these kind of platforms are more complex. You would have heard from the earlier speakers, it is not as easy as you think in terms of developing these algorithms, putting into use. You might want to really get a data store which is slightly different. The querying pattern will be very slightly different. It might go beyond three-dimensional view of thinking in terms of how you really want the data, and it has to be very fast, basically, right? So that creates more interesting proposition. And we all carry mobile, and mobile will replace your laptop or whatever is it, and it's going to act as a sensor. It's going to act as a voice enablement. It's going to act as everything in the future, right? Instead of making our life simple, if you switch it on, it is going to give you so many things. It might give you an API or an attached screen by which you program it, than trying to tell that every time I want to write bigger things, I want to open a laptop, okay, and then you move here. You can have an attached specific mobile application where it can start connecting to multiple things, but it becomes the key enabler for you to really drive something, right? Data science is a very important component. Today we really see in an incremental world, pattern analysis becomes very important. I think a lot of speakers spoke about that, but from a specific use case, whether it's an automobile, whether you're looking at something from a logistics perspective or a smart city perspective, what is happening on the data science perspective, what kind of machine learning stuff is to be done for that, and how do you develop this data scientist is going to be a very interesting area for all of us to see. So one of the objectives of why the SICI will use in the future is, it's a platform, right? When you have a platform, what are you trying to do is, basically it can plug it into any of your applications. So it means like if you want to really add on to this particular application a feature, it should be quickly be able to be enabled and put across to your car, or it could be to your Surface, or it could be to your tablet, or whatever you call. So I think that convenience is not very good today, right? So you can have a lot of things, but if you want to put to use in a natural emotions, it's a very complicated stuff. So what has changed in a conference like this between last 40 years? Is it like somebody introduced me automatically when I came in, right? Did a lot of things got taken care in terms of what I do, right? Is there anybody I'm talking to as a machine intelligence? Nothing, right? So a lot of things are still mundane. It's not natural. But when I go to backend, when I go to repository, I could tell that a lot of things are interesting, etc. But in a natural phase, automation is a lot of problems. And if I would love if that could happen, right? So that's something which you can see. I think you would have heard this usable and contextual variable. Now you would have seen that variables was a flop, right? So I don't like this watch to ring like a phone. It's most irritating thing for me, right? Because I can't hear voice properly. The opponent gets irritated, right? If I have to have an app store download from a Apple phone, the same app store gets into my watch. So nothing specific it does, right? It's not smart for me to really tell that I am using this watch because it does three things, which is differential. It can talk a Telugu language, it can talk Gujarati or something like that, and it can drive me something which is I don't know, right? It doesn't give me an unknown pattern for me to invest. I invested for maybe a high style, not invested for a utility, right? So you could see that usable and contextual variables, which can be just put, like when you come in, you get into an airways, they give you a earphone today, right? So like that, you might find on the road a lot of consumables which you can take and then tell I'm going to use this, I'm going to do something, right? And that's how you can see the variable getting utilized, because on that context, on that particular incremental stuff, you want to use maybe a glass, you want to use this, and it has to be omnipresent, right? If it is not an omnipresent thing, it just gets into the researchers and the scientists and the top levels. It has to be more consumable kind of thing, like in a simple thing. Today it's given complimentary. If you remember 8 years back, people will give you something, after the flight is over, take it from you, right? Today you can take it and bring it back. Nobody bothers to ask you because the cost of it has gone down. So the variables have to be a little more looking interesting. I could see mixed reality at the top, like one of the partners was trying to look at. That's going to be a very interesting space in development. From the virtual reality to augmented reality to the mixed reality, which actual stuff is going to happen, is going to be really interesting. Adaptive application interfaces is the ninth thing. And the last thing is the blended intelligence. I'm not talking about the robotic intelligence, but how the intelligence of a robot and a human can be looked at together, right? So what you saw here is 10 trends, nothing to do with Oracle, general trends which I could see that which could come up. But what is Oracle doing in on the AI and machine learning space? Just a few 2-3 minutes before I stop. Number one, you would have seen in open world, Larry Ellison announcing something called autonomous database, right? It means a database itself can fight, itself can tune, itself can find out what is the security. It can be vulnerable to that security. It can fight itself. You don't really need an engineer to look at a data fighting, right? So those kind of stuffs are happening. From an application side, we are building this for the AI. So this is our roadmap from an Oracle into the artificial intelligence space. So what this means is basically any of our applications we have, whether you call it a supply chain management or a HCM or a customer experience or an ERP, are going to become smarter, and the product engineering team is building this AI capability directly into the product. It's not a platform play, it's into the product. So it knows what to do. So you could see the engine about decision science, machine learning and web scale data, which all comes out of that, which is going to be really interesting for us to watch. Similarly, you can see the IDEs is completely, this is an IoT IDE which we have, which allows you to automate connecting to a device, pulling the information, etc. So when I did my research, there were two parts to it. One is to see a commonness in terms of what I can do overall to this community. Other, I could see a lot of fitment into the Oracle world, right? So Oracle world is more to do with how the database becomes autonomous, how all our products can be AI engineered. Third, if you see the applications, how it can be adaptive itself to really learn itself and then start doing the stuff, right? So because of lack of time, I stop here maybe for some questions, if you have any comments, blah, blah, blah. It's a very short time, so we don't have time to show the demos what on the Siki side, which I have developed. It will be very interesting for you guys to see it, but all onto the YouTube and everything in next 3 months. So please watch for the space, right? So any questions you have, love to take it.
Anyone here with any question?
Any questions? Hopefully, I think I've confused all of you effectively. If there is no questions, or is it like you understood what I was trying to talk about, right? Either of this. Yeah, great.
Hi. So very interesting session. Thank you for that. One question I have is, see, we work for an engineering company where we use engineering applications in order to design a power plant or a 3D model. So where do you see AI in terms of applications like that, which could learn the way we are trying to design a pump or a model or connect a pipe to a wall? Do you think we could build an AI into designing an application or a plant construction or construction industry? So can you just give like, how could we embed AI into applications like that?
Okay. So I think it's a very important question. Like I was not able to speak about the industry relevance in the short time. So what I see is there are a lot of fictitious things in AI and machine learning, if I have to be very honest with you. What is very important for us is when these constructions or any of your algorithm, what you're trying to talk about, if you add an element of, there is a lot of repetition which happens. We are working with one of the customers where there is multiple repetitions of certain activities which are happening within the algorithm space. So one thing you can do is to really find out those patterns, and as this previous panel was telling, automate those repetition. I think that's the first step. So it can really help you to have your machine do a lot of things which you don't have to intervene first. Second bit which is totally missing, which has to still catch up for the next 40 years, is the innovation bit. You have platform, you have engineering, you have data, you have infrastructure as service, platform as service, everything available. But the innovation is still bleak, right? Because I go to a hospital yesterday, I don't see an AI. If I go and walk into a hotel, I'm staying in one of the best hotel, I don't see AI. So I will see as a person, as a citizen. That's why the concept of Siki. If I walk into a registration and tell I want to check in, what's changed? Nothing has changed. So similarly in your industry, instead of trying to think so big that you get lost, you could look at one or two things where the customer experience is changing to your constructions workers. So you speak to the ground. They are going to talk very simple things to do. And if you can automate that, that takes care of the 80-20 rule. So a lot of people are thinking so big that finally we don't see anything on the ground. So this is my understanding of things, because as an individual, I will go by what I can see when I walk into any place, including a cinema theater. Right? Any other questions? We can have an offline talk if you want to be specific to the industry. We'll take one more question.
Anyone here with the last question? No, they all understood everything.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir, for coming here. Can we all give him a big round of applause?